Hello, everyone. Today is a podcast sponsored by Parents Opposed to Pot. We're talking with Eddie. He is somebody that's had experience with marijuana, and we're having him on the show today to tell his story in his own way. Welcome, Eddie, to the program.
Thank you, Tim. My name is Eddie Martinez, and I have had problems with marijuana and all sorts of types of drugs. So here's my story.
What age did you start using marijuana?
I started using marijuana on or about the age of 11 or 12. I started at a very young age, and I kind of believe it was all due to peer pressure and maybe something to do maybe with the environment and people that you possibly could be around them.
So it was your friends that got you interested, your peer group?
In a way, yes, I would say that, but also it's up to us as individuals to make the right decisions. Although that I come from a single parent, and there was 5 of us, and I was the youngest, so I was very curious of trying to fit in wherever I could.
Oh, the plight of the youngest child. It can be rough when you have older brothers and sisters and you want to be big like them, and I could just imagine. So you were raised by a single parent. I know you're very devoted to your mother. How did she react when she first found out that you were using marijuana? Was she alarmed or concerned?
No, well, most of the times us as young adolescents, we try to hide everything, but there are all sorts of signs of a teenager in the midst of starting to use drugs. And what I mean by that is either staying out a little later, hanging out with different kind of people, and stop going to school or missing days. And there are all sorts of signs to let us, as the parent that I am now, to know about what to look for and possible hints that we need to not turn the eye away and deal with the issues head on.
How did your behavior change in your family as you entered into the drug life and doing drugs on a regular basis?
As I stated, it all started with school. I started not wanting to go to school. I started to miss days. My behavior became a little radical. And the signs were out there. I didn't want to do my homework. I didn't seem too interested in school. And I started coming home a little later and later. And reflecting back on it now, the signs were all there. But us as parents, we want to turn a blind eye to this. And this is one of our biggest mistakes as parents.
What advice would you give to a mom or dad if they start to notice these signs and maybe the other parent still wants to turn a blind eye, but as a single person in a marriage, is there something a parent could do to maybe arrest the behavior in their child, get their attention somehow?
Yes, there is. But due to my experience, we at times get a little irritated as adolescents listening to our parents' speech or lectures. So this is just my opinion. I would find someone like myself that's been through this, that the kid could relate to, and maybe hear from a different perspective. Because sometimes us as adolescents and as kids, the lectures that we get, we're so immune to them. And since we think we know it all, And there's possibly not too much for parents to do as far as unless you have the financial means where you could just pick up and just move elsewhere, which then again, there's really nowhere to go. This issue needs to be addressed head on. But again, I reflected back on my past, I really don't see anything that the parent could actually do. That's kind of sad and hurtful to say, but from my experience, and maybe it might be a different generation, and I'm not sure how kids react to their parents lecturing them nowadays. So in my era, you still say that it basically goes in one ear and comes out the other. And sometimes when we get reprimanded, even we tend to lash out. And when we lash out, it's basically a sign of guilt that we're doing something wrong.
Right. Well, I like your idea about getting another person that maybe tried drugs and had a bad experience to gently share their story. And I know that in many communities there are programs, drug prevention, drug awareness programs that parents and their children can attend. There's also the film The Other Side of Cannabis, which is available on DVD that somebody could show in their home, or maybe at a church youth group could be shown. So there's a lot of ways to get those other voices involved. Like you said, we tend to rebel more when it's our parents. I can say that for me, the biggest fear I had was losing the respect of my parents. And I knew both of them because they had expressed sort of an anti-drug message to me, that if they ever found out that I was, indulging, that they would be so disappointed. And so that kept me on the straight and narrow for the most part, just wanting to please my parents. So I would urge parents to give a very strong, we don't do drugs, we don't condone doing drugs in this house. It may be for other people, but it's not for our family. And just from a very young age, as you said, you started at the age of 11 or 12, and we're hearing that that's quite common. So even well before parents think their children need to hear this little sit-down message, sit down and have a heart-to-heart talk, because at that stage, if you can preempt the drug use before they get into it, they're not going to be, there's no initiative to rebel because they're not doing anything wrong yet, right?
Yes, but I also would like to state that it's becoming upon us parents to also lead by example. And what I mean by that is, and I'm not trying to single out any parent in particular, but sometimes the arguing, sometimes the behavior of the parents or parents themselves has an effect on the child. I myself, and repeat again, I come from a single parent. My mom was a single parent. I grew up without a dad. And I was very, very I'm trying to find the right word, but it was very stressful on my mother, trying to keep up with 5 kids, and when they're all rebelling. Well, my mom was an alcoholic, which I'm sorry to say, but I'm not ashamed of. And we also have been through different stepfathers, relatively speaking, and I honestly believe that that also had an effect on us. So it's becoming upon us parents to lead by example. We like to blame the kids, blame their affiliation, blame their behavior. And sometimes as parents, we don't want to take responsibilities for our own actions. So it's up to us as parents, if we're going to lecture or preach or whatever word you might want to use, to lead by example. So that's very important in the adolescent especially with all this peer pressure that's going on here nowadays.
Well, I can see where it makes sense to me that if a child is growing up in a stress-filled home and there's lots of arguments and anger and people stomping around, that their general unhappiness would make them susceptible to trying drugs to get happy again. You know, just that escapism, that consolation that it might seem to take a substance in that's going to reverse all of the turmoil in their immediate sphere. So I do think that creating a shelter, making your home a shelter and a safe environment, and keeping the friction and the fractiousness to a minimum could help drug-proof your children. So I agree. If you're going to have a good relationship with your child, you need to have the right environment, to cultivate that relationship. But tell us more about the consequences you experienced as a young teenager with doing drugs, because I really don't know your whole story. Tell us more about how your story went on.
Well, it started as maybe I have not mentioned this, but I came from Puerto Rico at a young age, and of course I didn't speak no English, so I had to endure a lot of bullying from many types of ethnicities, and that kind of started building a resentment towards a lot of people. And I don't want to mention any colors or any race or whatever the situation may be. But at a very young age, I started to have resentments, not only about the situation that I seen with my mom, but people in general. Bullying also has a devastating effect on kids. I know because I experienced it myself. So coming here at a young age, experiencing bullying, witnessing my mother to be specific, going through alcoholic problems, it kind of took its toll on me, and for the most part, I was a good kid. I was going to school, but through time, and what I mean by that, that's the environment that I was in, which it did not help at all. It was, to put it mildly, it was toxic. And what I mean by that is witnessing the relationships with my mother, and there were domestic violence involved. So, as I stated previously, some of our behavior as parents sometimes takes a toll on the child itself. So now getting back to my drug usage, unfortunately we didn't have financial means to live in a pretty stable environment, if you want to call it that. But we happened to move to a housing project. Well, in a housing project, of course, there's drugs, there's gangs, and there's violence. So after moving to this housing project, I really didn't want to deal with the people. I was basically trying to stay away from the negativity. But again, because it's very important that I keep reiterating the word that I'm reiterating, or whatever the word that I'm looking for, reiterating, it starts at the home. Most of this we blame my kids, we tend to shift the focus to the kids. And a lot of it, believe it or not, it starts at the home. So by witnessing the drinking, and of course I witnessed the smoking pot, well, I wanted to indulge. I wanted to fit in, and sort of a joke or whatever you may want to call it, but it was kind of recreational, if you want to put it mildly. So I wanted to indulge. So it started with marijuana, which of course leads to alcohol, and then it leads to more harsh and stronger drugs like heroin, cocaine, pills, and everything above because we're trying to fit in. So once you were, let's just say that we're in a group smoking weed, and I hear my friend or whoever it may be speaking of a certain drug in particular and how that affected them, well, I will also want to try that drug. But it basically all starts with the pot. And the pot nowadays is just so horrific. If the chemicals that they put in the weed nowadays or the pot is so addictive compared to the natural or organic weed that I used to smoke back in my days. As a 55-year-old that I just turned a few days ago, this was quite a while ago when I started using pot. So the pot compared from today to back then, it's just no comparison about it. This pot nowadays makes kids react or act very differently. It's very addictive. And of course, the one that wins in this whole ordeal is the pot pusher. Because as he knows that it is addictive, the more chemicals, the more you keep them coming back. Well, as a rule of the thumb, the more you use, the more immune you become to whatever drug it is of your choice or whatever drug you're indulging in. So, to put it in perspective, this drug, you're going to eventually need more and more and more because your immune system, it just needs that and it's getting stronger. So, it's going to take, it all starts very innocently, if you want to put it like that, mildly, but it eventually will turn into something very drastic and horrible.
Well, it's very interesting to me that the people that want to push legalization of drugs, they always say the gateway theory is a crock. It's not true. But your story is that it did open you up to trying other things. It did give you that desire to try a new and different high and try different things. So tell us all the drugs you personally used that you can remember.
Well, it actually started with the marijuana. As I said, it's basically the foundation of all drugs. And having experienced and tried out the drug from past and the drug from today, and I'm referring to the marijuana, there's just no comparison. It's just totally different, very addictive. And from marijuana, I went to alcohol. From alcohol, I tried pills. So after trying pills, I also experienced going in my mother's medicine cabinet. And I thought it was kind of fun. And showing my friends the drugs, we took it, the pills. And from there, it led to heroin. From heroin, once you're at that level, there's just no ending to it. You're willing to try just about anything, whether it's cocaine, whether it's pills, whether it's crack, whatever. It just, you're open to just about any type of drug. Once you go down that road and start with weed or marijuana.
And you know what kept me from going down this path was the thought of me being a hopeless addict and my poor parents having to look at me that way and deal with me, you know, because that is the worst case scenario. That may not happen to everybody, but there are people that are hopeless addicts, and it really does ruin their life. And I'm sure you've seen a lot of that. But did you have to end up selling drugs in order to afford all this? Because it sounds like you're talking about some pretty expensive habits there.
Yes. I I was around a drug dealer. I admired the drug dealer. I wanted to become a drug dealer, and yes, I did become a drug dealer. But becoming a drug dealer, all that meant was that I was doing my own product. What I mean by that, I was doing my own. I was smoking or doing or taking the same drug I was selling. Well, there's a rule of the thumb. Back then, I don't know about now, that you're not supposed to use the product or drugs that you're selling, but eventually you will. So I started using more because, of course, it was more available now that I'm dealing it. Well, we have this fantasy about once you start dealing drugs and the money starts coming in so easily without having to earn it, that we start glamorizing that lifestyle. What I mean by that, the drinking is going to get heavier. The smoking is going to become very overwhelming. You're going to have lots of friends. You probably even have enough to buy you nice things. But in the long run, it does not pay off. In the long run, there will be detrimental consequences to it, like jail, for which I have been in prison, not just jail, but prison. And the drug usage, there's just never ending to it. It keeps on, and it's kind of heartbreaking to me to see some of these recovery places shutting down for whatever reason, whether it's lack of funds or no sponsoring or not enough people having to care about drug addicts, because we tend to say, well, I know my kid is not using. That's their problem. We should never. We should indulge in this as a community and as a group, and of course as parents.
What led to you going to jail for this? Obviously, it wasn't your using of the drugs; it was your selling of it. Correct?
Well, both. I was selling, using, and of course, at times when the lifestyle, to put it mildly, that we glamorize so much as a drug dealer does not work out, well, now here we are with whatever drug habit we have, that sometimes we need to, and most of the time, we need to fulfill it with financial means. Whereas there's no financial means, we have to get the financial means from somewhere, whether it's stealing from our own parents, whether it's things coming up missing in the house, whether it's stealing, whether it's whatever. And in my case, I've done it all. I have robbed people. I have stolen from people. I have done things that are so distasteful and I am so ashamed of, but it was part of the drug environment and the drug-induced life that I had.
So have you done things like stick a gun in somebody's face and say, give me your wallet and your watch?
Yes. I also have broken into people's house. I also have kicked in people's door. I have threatened people with their lives. I have done things that are even unmanageable. And what I mean by that, I actually have broken into a house with guns, where there was kids, there was parents, there were people terrified, the kids were terrified. Everybody in general was terrified except me, because I was doing it for my drug habit, and my drug habit just basically took over my life.
Wow. So how many years did you spend in jail/prison?
A total of 22 years in and out of prisons, wasted from my life that I can never get back.
Wow. Eddie, I so appreciate you sharing this story. It's kind of chilling because I know what a nice person you are. We've gotten to know each other over the years. Just for our audience's sake, I got to know Eddie because he was fed so poorly in prison. He ended up ill. In the prison system where he was, they were feeding high percentage of soy in the diet. So he ended up with all kinds of stomach problems and et cetera. So I met him through working on that legal case to try to stop that high soy diet in his prison. But now that you're out and working and being back with your family, it's honorable that you're trying to share your story to help young people avoid your fate. Because you said 22 years
Yes,
in and out?
23 years.
Wow. Tell us a little bit about prison life. Like how was it in there?
Well, everybody has heard this word, survival of the fittest. As me speaking for myself, I was in gangs. And like I said, I had became violent at times. I got to know many people through my drug usage, through my drug dealing. So as far as being bullied, I wasn't so much bullied because I was affiliated to a gang, which I do not recommend to anyone.
This was a prison gang. This was in prison, a gang in prison, right?
Well, the gangs from the streets end up in prison, and of course, there's gangs everywhere. There's gangs in the street, there's gangs in prison, and due to these gangs, I've been shot, stabbed, beaten, and left for dead several times. So,
oh my goodness.
Yes, gangs is also an issue that we need to address. And speaking for myself, like I said, I've been stabbed, shot, and left for dead. So having to earn a reputation as far as being this violent young man, I was kind of, if you want to put it mildly, established in the prison system. However, having said that, so now I got to the prison system with a drug habit, which is nothing to talk about because you go to withdrawals, not having your drugs, and you become very depressed. Some people have thought about suicide. Some people have thought about lashing out. And it's just basically our own demons. That's basically, we tend to shift the focus to other problems, other situations, if you want to put it like that. But it's basically our own demons that we having to deal with. So going through withdrawals, we become very depressed. We're antisocial. And in my case, I also have been through that. But as I said, I was in a gang, and I knew many people. So I was kind of established at that aspect of the prison system. But having said that, now I didn't have no means for financial and trying to take care of myself financially in the prison system. So what I mean by that, you need money to eat at least halfway decent food.
Right.
For hygiene, soap, toothpaste, well, all this costs money. Sometimes what the prison system provides is inadequate and is something that most people will shy away from. And that, since you have mentioned the word soy, that I had a big problem with that, and that was actually caused me a lot of health problems. But again, it becomes a burden on the family, not so much us, because we sometimes need this kind of rude awakening. And I'm sorry to say that, and I know people are probably going to hammer down on me a little bit for being so blunt. But this is what it's about. It's about speaking the truth. It's about trying to reach kids. And it's about being straightforward, not trying to put a little blanket here or, I'm just not that kind of person. If you want to hear my story, I'm going to tell it the way it's supposed to be told, which is honestly and straightforward. So the prison system is the thing that also comes with doing drugs and dealing drugs.
Well, I know that there's a big push to let people out of jail because they're there for drugs, but I also have heard testimonies that going to jail was what got somebody straightened out. It's the best day of their life was going to jail for their drug habit or their drug selling, So which is it? Are you thankful in a way for your time in the federal prison?
Yes, I can sincerely say that because although it took me quite a few times to actually wake up and just do a 180 on my in my lifestyle, my behavior, and everything, and of course I surrounded myself with good people such as yourself and a few other friends that I have now, which they've been clean and sober. I have to do a whole turnaround. I have to let go of old relationships. I have to let go of old friends. I have to basically reevaluate and be around people that were constructive. I cannot socialize with the people that I used to socialize with because I will eventually give into that peer pressure as far as the drugs. And that's the one thing that I'm most afraid of. Not so much the gangs now because I'm older and mature and not into that, but drugs could be bought and had just about any street corner in the United States. It's so easy to obtain. And
you know how to do it. I'm sure you would have no trouble.
Yes.
Well, so would you say now you avoid use of any sort of substance? Do you drink at all, or do you indulge at all, or are you pretty much clean and sober? Or?
I'm pretty much clean and sober. I might have my little wine or my little beer, but it's not like I used to. What I mean by that is probably a little gathering with family and, little get together. It's basically about family. It cannot be around toxic people. What I mean by that is whether they're affiliated, whether they're doing drugs, whether they're selling drugs. I cannot be around those people. I have to stay away from them type of people. So basically, my motto now, and that's what's keeping me going and kind of straight, is family. And then, of course, good friends such as yourself.
Well, Eddie, I know you have a wonderful little dog that also probably makes you very happy.
Yeah.
And yesterday you had a surgery. Why don't you tell our audience about your surgery that you had yesterday?
Well, yesterday I went into surgery to try to get a piece of my life, of my past, removed. And what I mean by that was that I was shot 33 years ago in the streets of Chicago. And which, of course, I almost lost my life. And I was in intensive care for a whole week. And I was given up for dead. So, but to the grace of God, he pulled me through. And yesterday I decided to put that part of my life to rest. And how I learned about it was I still had a piece of a bullet lodged in my body. So it's been there 33 years, and 33 years is too long. So I wanted to put this piece of my life behind me by having this bullet removed out of my body. So I went for a surgery and tried to have this bullet removed from my body to put that part of my past behind me.
And I understand that the bullet didn't want to come out.
No, unfortunately, they were not able to find the bullet, and I struggled a little bit as far as emotionally because I was so looking forward to put this part of my life behind me. And unfortunately, again, they were not able to find the bullet, so it's still in me. Maybe it's God, because I rely on God a lot, and I turn to God a lot. And it's part of God saying, no, I want you with this peace in you, and I want it to be a reminder of where you come from and where you at now. So this is the way I would like to look at it. I would like to look at it as something constructive and something that maybe even a reminder of what to do and what not to do. So
yes, I think that's really interesting. It's almost a spiritual symbol
yes.
for you of how far you've come and the dangers of going back.
Yes, ma'am.
So
it's the only way to look at it. If doctors could not find it, which it should have been very simple, they're trained professionals, but sometimes God has a way to work in mysterious ways, and sometimes even sending you messages, and you have to weigh the difference, and sometimes you have to give thanks and blessings to God. I am a strong believer in faith, and I sincerely and honestly believe that it's through Him that I'm still alive today.
Wow. Well, it's been a powerful story. I hope it really gets the attention of some young people. Could you give us some parting words addressed to young people that are thinking about experimenting with drugs or trying drugs just for a lark, or, I'll just try it once just to know what it's like? What would you say to that young person right now?
Well, first and foremost, I know that us as adolescents and kids, we may think it's cool, but I say that the sooner you see somebody indulging in whatever it may be, whether it's reefer or weed, as they call it now, pills can also lead to devastating effects. Run away from that as soon as possible. Do not, under any circumstances, be around these type of people. And if you even think about or even give it a thought of use my words in this podcast and in this interview as a reminder of what can happen to you. This is what drugs lead to. It's a life of painful and hurtful memories. You not only hurt yourself, but you hurt loved ones and you hurt family, which is the most devastating part of all this. Sometimes we take for granted that our families are gonna be there, which of course they will, no matter what. But it's up to us as individuals, and I'm speaking to the kids, to not be around this type of toxic environment. It's a no-win situation. Once you start going down this road, there's no ending to it. There's just nothing but pain and suffering. So if you even think about whether, I don't care whether it's a pill, I don't care whether it's a joint, I don't care whatever it is, drugs is not the way to go. I should have paid more attention to education. I should have paid more attention to my parents. And I should have been around people that will be on the same page life and family is the heartwarming that you need to get you back through life. So my advice is, whether it's pills, weed, whatever it is, run away as far as you can from it as soon as possible.
And I can vouch for the fact that you can find friends that also avoid those substances. They're there.
Yes.
You just have to choose. It's a crossroads
Yes.
in the path of life, and you have to say, do I want to go this way or that way? And believe it or not, there's strength in numbers. If you surround yourself with other friends that don't want to smoke tobacco, don't want to drink alcohol, don't want to, have a joint, that will reinforce your strength. It will make you stronger in resisting. It's who you hang out with.
Yes.
So if you need help choosing better people to hang out with, seek an adult that you trust to guide you toward other teenagers or other adolescents that are going to be a little bit stronger in their convictions.
That is correct.
I appreciate your time today. We're going to wrap it up. Parents Opposed to Pot will hopefully bring you more stories like this that you can share with your families and with people you care about. And our website is poppot.org, and you can follow us in Facebook at poppot.org. So please follow us on Facebook, subscribe to our blog, and learn more how to drug-proof your family. Thank you so much, Eddie. I appreciate your time today. It's been very, very powerful.
Thank you, Kim, and I appreciate your friendship. You've been a guiding light for me. You've been a good friend to me, and for any reason that you need me regarding pot smoking, anything that you need me for, I will be here for you, and I am thrilled to participate in forums like this, and hopefully we could save a few kids from going down the path I've been.
Okay, you're on. I'll be back in touch on that. Thank you so much. It's been great talking to you.
Thank you so much, young lady, and you have a wonderful day. And for all the parents up there, never give up. Stay strong.
Good word. That's a good word, Eddie. Have a super day.
You too.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.